The cargo ship drifted like a ghost through the silence of space, its old engines humming with a tired rhythm as if even the machine wanted to rest. The galaxy ahead was strange, darker than most, with stars that seemed to pulse faintly, almost alive, almost watching. The crew had grown restless, whispering about shadows on the radar and lights that came and went like eyes in the void. The captain, a man who had seen more star systems than he could remember, stood at the bridge window, watching the endless stretch of darkness when the sound came. At first, it was faint, like static mixed with a distant beat, but soon it grew sharper, like a heartbeat tangled with a child's cry, soft but piercing, echoing inside the ship as if the sound was alive. The crew exchanged nervous looks, unsure if it was a signal or a haunting, but the captain's instincts told him to follow it. No map showed any station, no log reported ships in this quadrant, yet the sound pulled them forward, deeper into the unknown. The ship's scanners lit up with a small object floating adrift, spinning slowly against the emptiness. It was no asteroid, no wreckage. It was smooth, metallic, and broken, a pod cracked open along its edges as if something had tried to claw its way out. The signal grew louder, trembling with urgency, a cry for help buried inside steel and ice. The captain gave the order, and with careful hands, the crew pulled the pod into the cargo bay. Cold mist spilled across the floor as the chamber depressurized, and from within the shattered glass, a pair of glowing eyes blinked open. What lay inside silenced the crew, each man frozen in disbelief. It was small, no larger than a child, covered in dark silver scales that shimmered under the ship's lights. Tiny wings, fragile and trembling, pressed weakly against the walls of the pod. The creature let out a soft whimper, a sound halfway between a growl and a cry, its body shivering with fear. A dragon. The word itself felt impossible, absurd, something from human myths and ancient stories told around fires, not something alive in the black heart of a galaxy. Yet there it was, breathing, blinking, staring at the faces around it with frightened innocence. The crew recoiled, whispering about danger, about monsters, about cursed experiments left to die in space. But the captain stepped forward, his boots echoing against the cold metal floor. He bent down, his eyes meeting the creature's, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. He saw no monster in those eyes. He saw only fear and loneliness, the same look he had seen in orphans left behind after wars, in the eyes of soldiers abandoned on lost battlefields. Slowly, he reached out a hand. The creature trembled but did not pull away. Instead, it pressed its small head against his palm, a soft spark flickering between them like the universe itself had chosen this moment. The crew begged him to get rid of it, to cast the pod back into the void, to seal the cargo bay and forget. They spoke of alien weapons, of dangerous experiments, of traps laid by enemies unknown. But the captain's decision was made the moment the little creature touched his hand. He ordered them to secure the pod and prepare medical scans. The dragonling, though weak, tried to crawl toward him, its tiny claws scraping against the floor as though desperate not to be left alone again. Its breathing was rough, shallow, but every time it looked at him, the heartbeat-like signal echoed stronger through the ship, resonating inside the walls, inside their chests, like the bond was no longer just between man and creature but between the ship itself and the living being it now carried. As the hours passed, the dragonling rested in a small chamber, curled against a blanket like any child would. Its scales glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the strange heartbeat signal. The crew kept their distance, speaking in hushed tones, their fear growing with each flicker of its light. Yet the captain remained close, watching, studying, his mind tangled between duty and something deeper he could not explain. Who had left this creature in space? Why was it trapped in a pod, cracked and broken, left to drift in silence? And why, above all, did it call to him alone? The galaxy outside the ship seemed darker than before, the stars pulsing harder, as if something vast and unseen was watching, waiting for what choice the humans would make. In the silence of space, a baby dragon breathed softly, and with each fragile breath, the universe drew closer to a storm that no man could imagine. The days that followed changed the cargo ship forever. The dragonling, now named Lyra by the captain, became the center of every thought and every decision aboard the vessel. At first, the crew treated her as a curiosity, something fragile to observe, like a rare specimen from an unknown world. But Lyra was no ordinary creature. She was clever, her tiny eyes following every movement, her wings twitching as if testing the air, even in the confines of the ship. The captain spent hours near her, speaking softly, telling her stories of the stars, of planets and creatures she had never seen, though he doubted she understood the words. Yet she listened, tilting her head, blinking slowly, and somehow responding with the rhythm of her tiny heartbeat, syncing with his own. There was a strange magic in that connection, a pull that went beyond fear or instinct. The crew began to notice it too. The sparks she emitted were no longer just signs of fear or hunger. They flared brighter when the captain entered the room, dimmed when others approached. Even the ship itself seemed different, its engines smoother, the hum of machinery gentler, almost protective. It was as if Lyra's presence reshaped everything around her. Despite the wonder, life aboard the ship became tense. Lyra grew quickly, much faster than anyone could have imagined. Her wings stretched, her claws sharpened, and her small scales glimmered like molten metal under the ship's lights. The crew whispered about containment, about the dangers of raising a creature that was powerful beyond comprehension. At night, the hatchling's eyes would glow in the dark, peering into every corner, and the sparks she breathed would dance like lightning across the walls. Yet every display of power came with innocence. She never lashed out, never sought to harm, only reacted when frightened or curious. The captain insisted she was harmless, that her heart, her mind, was too young for cruelty. He saw something the others could not. Love. Lyra had chosen them, trusted them, and even in the vast emptiness of space, that choice mattered more than any rules or fears. The crew's unease grew when the scanners began to pick up strange readings beyond the ship's hull. At first, it was just anomalies, bursts of energy too small to identify. But soon, a pattern emerged, a sequence that pulsed in time with Lyra's heartbeat. The captain stared at the monitors, a chill running down his spine. "It's like she's calling them," one crew member whispered, fear thick in his voice. Another shook his head. "Or they're calling her." Neither was comforting. Questions filled the ship's corridors. Who was searching? What did they want? And why did the little dragon hold the key to it? The captain, however, did not flinch. He had chosen to protect her, and every hesitation or doubt dissolved when Lyra's small head rested on his shoulder, her warm breath brushing against his neck. That simple trust, that fragile bond, carried more weight than fear of the unknown. Lyra began to explore the ship, her tiny claws tapping against metal floors as she climbed over equipment and panels, always careful not to break anything. The crew, initially alarmed, gradually softened, laughing quietly at her antics. She learned to respond to their voices, turning her head or letting out a soft trill when called. Sometimes, she even imitated small sounds, a chirp or a whistle, and the bridge would fill with a strange harmony, a song of innocence and wonder in a place that was otherwise silent and mechanical. The captain would watch her in awe, realizing that this tiny creature, born in the void, had an intelligence that surpassed expectation. She was more than survival instinct, more than a legend come to life. She was a being of heart, capable of understanding and feeling in ways that humans could only guess at. But peace aboard the ship could not last forever. The signals from outside grew stronger, more insistent, impossible to ignore. Strange ships appeared on the scanners, dark silhouettes moving in patterns that were precise and terrifyingly fast. Every time Lyra twitched her wings or let out a small spark, the radar would flare, as if the creature sensed the approaching threat before the technology could detect it. Suspense hung in the air like static. Every shadow on the monitors, every sudden beep, made the crew jump. They began to understand the truth. The galaxy was watching, and they were not alone in caring for the dragon. Someone, or something, was hunting her. And the hunters would not stop for hesitation or fear. In these moments, Lyra became more than a companion. She was their warning system, their fragile protector, their reason to fight. The captain felt the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders, heavier than any cargo he had ever transported. He had chosen love over duty, trust over fear, and now he would face the consequences. Yet when he looked at Lyra, curled against a blanket in the quiet of the observation deck, her tiny chest rising and falling with a soft glow, he knew that nothing in the galaxy could replace this bond. She had chosen him, and he had chosen her. That decision, simple as it seemed, would shape the path of every star system they would encounter. And in the silence of space, where danger could strike without warning, the heartbeat of a tiny dragon reminded them all that life, love, and courage could survive even in the darkest void. Every day brought new challenges, new sparks of fear and wonder intertwined. Lyra learned to control her small abilities, careful not to burn through metal or ignite anything flammable, and the captain taught her to trust the crew, to see them not as threats but as family. Together, they navigated the unknown, the strange galaxy stretching endlessly beyond their windows, full of stars that seemed brighter when they shared their quiet moments with her. The story of a tiny dragon and a human captain was beginning, and every glance, every touch, every soft glow from Lyra's scales carried with it the promise of adventure, danger, and a love that could change the course of the galaxy itself. The sense of peace aboard the cargo ship was fragile, like ice floating on a boiling sea. For days, the crew had adjusted to the presence of Lyra, the tiny dragon who had chosen to trust them, who had woven herself into the rhythm of life aboard the vessel. But the galaxy beyond was never quiet, and soon the truth of their fragile sanctuary became impossible to ignore. The scanners flickered one morning, revealing patterns that sent chills through the crew. Shadows moving faster than any human ship could travel, shapes dark and angular against the distant stars. The captain frowned, a knot tightening in his stomach, sensing a danger that was neither rumor nor instinct but something very real, something approaching them with precision and purpose. Then the first transmission came. It crackled across the comm, a cold, metallic voice that carried with it a threat so immediate and sharp it felt as though the walls themselves shivered. "Surrender Subject 9, or be destroyed," it said, repeating the warning twice. The crew froze. Lyra twitched at the sound, her small body stiffening as though she understood the danger in a way no one else could. Fear spread quickly. Some of the crew argued to hand the dragon over, to give in to the unknown threat and preserve their lives. "We can't fight them," one officer whispered, voice trembling. "They'll tear this ship apart in minutes. Better to surrender her than die." Others were silent, unable to move, staring at Lyra who huddled close to the captain, her scales dimming with fear. The captain felt a surge of protectiveness, a fierce, raw emotion that pushed all logic aside. Lyra was not a weapon to be handed over. She was not cargo, not a tool. She was a living being, fragile and small and full of trust, and he would not betray that. Yet even as his heart decided for him, doubt gnawed at his mind. Could they survive an entire alien fleet? Could one tiny dragon truly make a difference? The thought should have terrified him, but when he looked at her glowing eyes, brimming with fear and innocence, he found strength. He would not let the galaxy take her. The hours passed with tension thick as lead. Every blip on the radar, every flicker of light outside the ship, made hearts pound and breaths catch. Lyra moved carefully around the cabin, small sparks flaring from her scales when she stumbled or became startled. The crew began to see it. She was more than just a child. She was aware, intelligent, sensing danger before the scanners even picked it up. One evening, as the captain reviewed the readings, Lyra climbed onto the console and pressed her tiny claw against the display. The blinking dots on the radar shifted, aligning with her movement as if she was guiding them, pointing out threats invisible to human eyes. The crew watched in awe and fear. This tiny dragon, no larger than a child, had abilities that defied everything they knew about life in the galaxy. She was powerful, yes, but her power was tethered to something else. Her love, her trust, her choice to stay with them. That choice was more dangerous than anything in the void. Then the first attack came. The alien ships struck like shadows made of steel, slamming against the shields of the cargo ship with devastating force. Alarms blared, red lights flooding the corridors, throwing the crew into chaos. Lyra squealed, wings flapping rapidly as sparks erupted around her, tiny bursts of energy that danced and crackled like fire across the metal walls. The captain barked orders, trying to keep the ship together, but even he had never seen anything like this. The aliens moved with precision, circling, cutting off escape routes, each strike designed to test defenses, to see how far they could push before she broke. And yet, in the midst of chaos, Lyra remained close to the captain, her small body pressing against him as if sharing his fear, sharing his resolve. It became clear to everyone aboard that this was no ordinary pursuit. The aliens were not seeking resources or information. They were hunting Lyra specifically, and the urgency in their attacks showed a knowledge of her power that frightened even the bravest crew members. Some suggested abandoning the ship, drifting into uncharted space and hiding, but the captain refused. To leave would be to betray her, to surrender the bond she had chosen with him. And that was a thought he could not endure. Every blaring siren, every hull breach, every flash of alien energy only strengthened his resolve. The dragon was his responsibility, and he would fight for her. As the battle raged, Lyra's powers began to manifest in ways no one expected. Sparks turned into streaks of light that bent and twisted, striking enemy vessels with precision. Her wings created gusts of energy, pushing debris and attackers alike. She was small, fragile, and yet terrifying in her potential. The crew realized that she was more than just a companion. They were partners in a fight they had never trained for, navigating the void with courage tethered to trust and love. And in the midst of danger, the captain understood something vital. Lyra's choice to stay with them was a challenge to the galaxy itself. She had chosen love over fear, and in that choice lay their only hope. By the end of the engagement, the ship was battered, alarms still ringing, the metal hull scorched and dented. But they had survived. The alien fleet had withdrawn, their reason unclear, their intent still a threat looming on the edge of every star system. Lyra, trembling but unharmed, curled against the captain, and for the first time in hours, the crew felt the fragile peace return. The captain stared at her glowing eyes and whispered, "You're safe, for now." But even as he spoke, he knew the galaxy would not forget this moment, and neither would she. Lyra had chosen them, and they had chosen to fight for her. In the vast emptiness, a baby dragon's heartbeat had become the spark that lit courage in human hearts, and that spark would burn long before the stars themselves seemed to notice. The captain knew there was no turning back. The alien fleet had tested them, marking them as threats, and there would be no mercy if they faltered again. The crew moved through the ship like shadows, working tirelessly to repair hull breaches, reroute energy, and strengthen shields. Lyra watched from her small chamber, wings twitching nervously, eyes glowing faintly as if sensing every flicker of danger outside the ship. Her presence was no longer just a comfort, it was the lifeline that connected the crew, the symbol of their reason to survive. The captain called the team together, outlining a plan to escape the pursuing fleet. It would require more than evasive maneuvers. It would require ingenuity, daring, and a little help from the dragon who had chosen to trust them. The crew glanced at Lyra, their fear mingled with awe. She seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, tilting her head as if considering how best to help. The journey into the asteroid field was their first real test. Massive rocks floated through the void, each a potential trap or weapon, yet also a perfect shield against alien sensors. The ship weaved between them, scraping and grinding against jagged metal at times, sparks flying where shields met debris. Lyra perched near the captain, her tiny claws gripping the edge of the console. When sensors detected a rapid approach, she flared her wings, sending a pulse of energy that nudged the ship just enough to avoid a collision. The crew stared, breathless. Her instincts were flawless, her timing perfect. This tiny creature, barely larger than a human child, was guiding them through dangers even the most advanced navigation systems could not predict. It was not just survival, it was trust, raw and instinctive. As the hours passed, Lyra began to show new abilities. She could sense danger before it appeared on the radar, her small body trembling as if forewarning the crew of attacks they could not yet see. Sometimes, her sparks formed patterns, almost like signs, warning of hidden mines or cloaked ships. The captain realized she was more than a passenger, she was the key to surviving this chase. Every decision he made now relied on her instincts, and every choice was a gamble with their lives. Suspense hung thick in the air, every crew member alert, every heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the dragon's glowing pulse. The enemy fleet was relentless, yet their precision seemed to falter near Lyra, as if some unseen force shielded them. The crew could not explain it, but hope, fragile yet blazing, took root. One night, while drifting through a sector of dense cosmic debris, the fleet attempted a sudden attack. Dark silhouettes emerged from behind asteroids, weapons charging, engines blazing. The crew braced for impact, but Lyra reacted first. She extended her wings fully, releasing a wave of energy that bent gravity around the ship. The attacking vessels were pushed off course, colliding with debris or each other. Sparks lit the cockpit, alarms blaring, and yet the ship remained intact. The crew stared in disbelief. Lyra had not just protected them, she had become their shield, their weapon, their guide. The captain knelt near her, whispering words of encouragement, feeling the bond between them deepen in ways that surpassed reason. Her small body radiated warmth and power, a mixture of vulnerability and unstoppable force. In that moment, fear melted away, replaced by awe and trust. But the galaxy offered no time for relief. Another fleet appeared on the horizon, larger, faster, more calculated. The captain realized that evasive maneuvers alone would not be enough. They needed a plan that relied not just on speed but on Lyra's growing abilities. He called the crew together again, outlining a desperate strategy. They would use the ship as bait, drawing the alien fleet into a narrow nebula, while Lyra manipulated the environment. Sparks would become energy pulses, her small wings generating bursts that could destabilize enemy engines, while the ship's shields acted as amplifiers. It was risky, nearly impossible, and yet it was their only chance. Lyra, perched calmly, seemed to understand, her eyes glowing steadily, matching the captain's resolve. The crew followed his lead, their fear tempered by the trust that the dragon had instilled in them. The battle began as they entered the nebula. Thick clouds of gas distorted sensors, creating illusions that disoriented the alien fleet. Lyra's energy pulses lit up the fog, striking enemies with precision, bending light and gravity to confuse and repel them. The crew shouted instructions, moving frantically to keep the ship in position, yet everything seemed to pivot around her small, glowing form. Time stretched, each second heavy with tension, each decision a gamble. And then, as the last wave of attackers closed in, Lyra released a final burst of power, a blinding pulse that rippled through the nebula, shaking enemy ships, disabling engines, and scattering them into the void. The silence that followed was deafening. The crew looked around, breathing heavily, staring at Lyra in stunned admiration. She was exhausted, tiny wings drooping, yet she had done the impossible. In the quiet aftermath, the captain held her close, feeling her warmth against his chest. The crew gathered, still trembling but alive, their fear replaced by a sense of wonder and gratitude. Lyra, the dragon who had chosen love over fear, had guided them through a nightmare and emerged victorious. Yet the captain knew this was only the beginning. The fleets would return, and the galaxy would not forgive the loss of such a rare and powerful creature. But for now, they survived, bound together by trust, courage, and the tiny dragon who had proven that even the smallest being could change the course of fate. As the cargo ship drifted forward, stars stretching endlessly ahead, the captain whispered softly, "We will face them, together." Lyra blinked, sparks flickering gently along her scales, as if answering in her own language, a promise that the fight had only begun, and that love, courage, and choice could shape the destiny of the universe. The cargo ship floated in the shadow of a dead star, its hull scorched and battered from the relentless pursuit through the galaxy. The crew moved quietly, exhaustion etched into every face, each step measured, careful, as if one wrong move could undo all they had survived. Lyra perched near the captain, her small wings folded tightly against her body, her glowing scales dim and pulsing faintly, a reminder of the energy she had poured into protecting them. For hours, silence reigned, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's engines and the distant roar of radiation from the dying star. The captain stared at the monitors, seeing the enemy fleet massing, dark shapes like predators closing in with deadly precision. Escape seemed impossible. Every calculation, every simulation, led to the same conclusion: they were trapped. The weight of responsibility pressed down harder than ever. He glanced at Lyra, her small body trembling, and the truth became clear. She understood. She could sense it, the inevitability of the situation, the choice she now faced. The alien's message had been repeated again and again, a constant, mechanical reminder of the stakes. Surrender Subject 9, or face annihilation. Every crew member whispered among themselves, debating, fearing, hoping. Some suggested abandoning the ship entirely, letting Lyra fend for herself in the void to save their own lives. Others spoke of hiding, drifting silently until the fleet passed. But the captain knew that none of these options were acceptable. To abandon Lyra was impossible. She was not just a creature, she was their companion, their protector, their bond in the endless void. And she had chosen them. The thought of letting her go, even for survival, was unbearable. Yet as he looked at her glowing eyes, now dull from exhaustion, he realized she understood the stakes more deeply than any human could. She had to decide, flight or fight, survival alone or standing with those she loved. The dead star loomed larger in their viewports, a mass of light and shadow that offered no cover, no hiding place, only the inevitability of confrontation. The captain made the decision that no one else could. They would face the fleet. But it would not be enough for mere human courage. Lyra would have to use every ounce of power she possessed. The crew prepared the ship, rerouting energy to shields and weapons, while the captain spoke to Lyra softly, his voice calm, full of encouragement. He had never seen fear in her eyes like this, and yet he also saw determination, a quiet, stubborn resolve that made his heart ache with pride. The moment had come for her to choose, and he would not force her. He could only stand beside her, ready to fight together. As the alien fleet closed in, the first waves of attack began. Beams of energy struck the shields, shaking the ship violently, warning alarms screaming as metal bent and sparks flew. Lyra reacted immediately, releasing pulses of light and energy that pushed enemy vessels off course, her small body glowing brighter with every surge. Each attack drained her, leaving her trembling, wings drooping, yet she refused to retreat. The captain could see the toll it took, each flicker of her scales a warning that her strength was not limitless. And yet, in her eyes, he saw choice. She was fighting not just to survive but to protect the crew, to honor the bond she had formed. The battle raged, the alien fleet relentless, and the cargo ship, once a mere vessel of trade, became a battlefield, a fragile stage where courage, love, and sacrifice intertwined. The climax came when the fleet attempted to trap them near the star's core, a deadly maneuver designed to overwhelm shields and crush the ship in heat and gravity. The captain realized this was the moment of truth. Lyra, sensing the danger, turned toward him, her small form trembling but resolute. The choice was hers. With a deep, steadying breath, she released all the power she had held back, a brilliant wave of energy that rippled outward, bending light, gravity, and radiation, pushing the alien ships back in a stunning display of force. Sparks arced across the hull, consoles flashed alarms, yet the ship survived. Every crew member stared, wide-eyed, understanding that this tiny creature, barely more than a hatchling, had saved them all. But the effort had drained her. Lyra collapsed gently into the captain's arms, her wings limp, scales dimming as if her life force had been poured entirely into this moment of sacrifice. In the aftermath, the alien fleet retreated, unable to comprehend the unexpected force that had repelled them. The cargo ship floated in silence, battered but intact. The crew moved to tend to their small companion, their fear now mingled with awe. Lyra, exhausted yet alive, lay curled in the captain's arms, a fragile but unbroken presence. The captain whispered softly, words of comfort and gratitude, feeling the weight of their shared ordeal. This moment, born of courage, love, and choice, had changed them all. Lyra had chosen to stand with them, not for survival alone, but for something greater, the bond that defined them, the trust that bound them together. As the crew tended to repairs and the ship drifted away from the dead star, the captain realized the truth. The galaxy had been watching, and this tiny dragon had proven that even the smallest, most fragile being could alter the course of fate. Lyra had not only protected them, she had transformed their understanding of strength, sacrifice, and love. In her quiet, glowing presence lay the promise of future battles, challenges, and triumphs yet to come. And as the cargo ship sailed onward through the endless void, every heart aboard carried a spark of hope, a reminder that courage and love, chosen over fear and survival, could shine brighter than any star. The quiet that followed the battle was heavy, almost sacred. The cargo ship drifted through the void, its hull battered and scarred, yet intact, a testament to the courage of its crew and the small dragon who had changed the course of their lives. Lyra rested in the captain's arms, tiny body curled and trembling, scales dim but still faintly glowing with life. The crew worked in silence, repairing systems, checking shields, and rerouting power, each movement careful and reverent. None of them spoke of the danger they had faced. Words felt inadequate. Instead, they stole glances at Lyra, understanding that the tiny creature had not only saved them but had shown them a truth no human strategy or weapon could teach: that love, trust, and courage could defy even the most impossible odds. The captain held her close, feeling her warmth against his chest, and for the first time in hours, he allowed himself to breathe, to truly absorb the magnitude of what had happened. But the galaxy was not yet done with them. Though the alien fleet had retreated, their threat lingered like a shadow stretching across the stars. Every blink of the monitors, every distant flicker of light, reminded the crew that the enemy would return, that their victory was only temporary. The captain knew this, yet he also understood that the battle had shifted. They were no longer merely prey or survivors. Lyra had revealed something the galaxy could not ignore: power paired with choice, vulnerability paired with trust. She had chosen to fight with them, and in doing so, had changed the rules of engagement. Every decision, every risk, every spark of energy she had released had created a ripple that would echo far beyond the boundaries of their tiny ship. As the hours stretched into days, Lyra began to recover. Her scales regained their shimmer, her wings twitched with renewed strength, and her small chest rose and fell with steady, deliberate breaths. The crew tended to her as carefully as they would a child, offering food, warmth, and reassurance. And slowly, they began to understand her not just as a creature of myth, not just as a weapon or a companion, but as a being capable of emotion, intelligence, and choice. She had proven that even in the vast emptiness of space, life could form bonds strong enough to defy fear itself. The captain watched her closely, feeling a mixture of pride and awe. She was more than a dragon. She was a symbol, a reminder that courage was not measured in size or strength, but in the willingness to stand, to choose, and to act for the ones you loved. The ship moved forward, leaving the dead star behind, stars stretching endlessly in every direction. The crew fell into routines once more, but the tension never fully left their minds. They knew the alien fleet would return, that the hunt for Lyra was far from over. Yet the fear that had gripped them during the chase was now tempered by knowledge and trust. They had survived impossible odds together, and they had learned that strength came not from firepower or shields alone, but from the bond between them and the tiny dragon who had chosen to fight with them. Lyra's small presence had changed everything: the way they navigated the stars, the way they made decisions, and the way they understood courage. One evening, as the ship drifted past a cluster of distant suns, the captain sat with Lyra on his lap, her tiny claws resting on his arm. He spoke softly, recounting stories of planets they had yet to see, of civilizations they might encounter, of dangers they could face. Her eyes glimmered in response, reflecting starlight and something deeper, a quiet intelligence that spoke without words. The crew moved about the ship, repairing and monitoring systems, yet they stole glances at the captain and dragon, sensing the profound connection that had formed between them. It was a bond that no alien fleet, no law of physics, and no corner of the galaxy could sever. Lyra had chosen love over survival, and in doing so, had given them all a new understanding of what it meant to be alive, to be brave, and to be part of something greater than oneself. The galaxy stretched endlessly ahead, full of unknown worlds, hidden dangers, and untold possibilities. The captain knew that their journey was only beginning, that the fleets hunting Lyra would not rest, and that their challenges would grow with every light year they traveled. Yet he also knew that they were no longer helpless. Lyra's power, her trust, and her courage had given them a fighting chance, a reason to hope, and a reason to continue. Every heartbeat, every glow of her scales, was a reminder that life could endure, that love could triumph over fear, and that the choices they made could ripple across the stars in ways no one could predict. As the ship sailed into the unknown, the captain whispered softly, "We'll face whatever comes, together." Lyra blinked slowly, sparks flickering gently along her scales, as if answering in her own language, a promise that she would remain by his side, ready to face the universe with courage and heart. The crew watched, hearts full, understanding that they had witnessed something extraordinary. The story of a tiny dragon who had chosen love over survival, and the humans who had chosen to stand with her. And in the quiet of space, amidst the distant stars and endless void, they realized that this was only the beginning. Lyra's glow pulsed gently, a heartbeat echoing across the galaxy, hinting at adventures yet to come, battles yet to be fought, and a legacy that would shine brighter than any star. The story of their bond, their courage, and their love was not finished. It had only begun, and the universe itself seemed to lean in, listening.